All right, let's talk about languages. What are some of the ways that you could learn a language? What could you do to learn a language? And so I was thinking about this and thought I'd do what anyone else is doing these days, check ChatGPT. So I did. Here are the 10 things that ChatGPT told me that I should do if I want to learn another language. Number 1, immerse yourself. What does that mean? Surround yourself with languages as much as you can. That means listening to music, watching movies, TV shows, reading books in your target language, following social media in your target language account. The one issue with trying to immerse yourself is that if you don't live in the country, this can be a little bit difficult to completely immerse yourself in your target language. So some things that I would actually recommend that you do to immerse yourself if you don't have lots of movies or TV shows or other sorts of things. Number 1 is to get some sticky notes. So if you get some sticky notes and you write your target vocab on the sticky note with the translation, so you have the word that you want to know, the translation, and then possibly the pronunciation as well. So whether for Mandarin Chinese, it would be pinyin. For other languages, you could even use the IPA system, the International Phonetic Association. That could help in learning some vocabulary. And of course, you stick these sticky tabs or sticky notes all over your room on the appropriate object. The second thing that you could do nowadays, you can watch YouTube vlogs, you can listen to podcasts. Spotify, I found it difficult to search for target language podcasts or broadcasts. So for this, going to YouTube and being able to search just videos in Cantonese, Ukrainian, or something like that, your target language, pick your target language and head up to YouTube to find something appropriate. Not only that, with YouTube, you can find graded material, whether it's just like people reading books or someone who's creating an actual day-to-day vlog about their life. The third thing that I would actually recommend is that you buy a book and don't read it. This is a funny thing, but I've found that this actually helps keep me focused on learning the language. So I put the book in a place where I can see it, not really intending to maybe read it, but it helps jog my memory, and that helps keep me aware of the language in my life, and that there is a mission, I guess you could say. Now, these books that are behind me right here, I did buy a couple of years ago. I have not read them. This one here, Yu Hua, Xu San Guan, Mai Xue Ji. It's the Chronicles of a Blood Merchant. Very famous book in China. The other one, San Ti, is Liu Zixin, I think is his name. Also very popular in China right now. Why haven't I read them? San Ti is actually quite high-level Chinese. Yu Hua was high-level Chinese when I bought it. I just haven't got around to doing it just yet, but I will. So buy a book, but don't read it. Put it in a place where you can see it, so it jogs your memory each and every time you see it. Number 2, consistency, or practice regularly. So this kind of goes without saying, is that you do need to be very consistent. Discipline plays a part in it, in that picking a time and developing a habit to be able to always go through the motions of learning the language. And I have found in my own language learning, and from hearing what other people do as well, is to not just pick a time, but pick a resource and stick with it to develop a habit. So you're not switching from resource to resource, material to material, and just simply going, okay, every morning for 15 minutes, I'm going to study my Chinese characters. Or for 15 minutes, I'm going to read a short story. For 15 minutes in the morning, I'm just going to listen to a podcast. But you're not changing it every day. You are using the same thing for a couple of days at a time, possibly even a week or even a couple of months at a time. I've found that 6 weeks is generally the cycle that it takes to not just create a habit, but to maintain that habit and make it easy for myself to access. So studying Chinese characters, writing in my target language as well, making sure that each and every day, 15 to 20 minutes I'm spending in the morning practicing my language. In making it easy for yourself, you have to keep in mind where your time is actually going. So if you have a commute or if you have a break at work, what are you doing in that time? If you can't get away at the morning, can you, first break of the day or second break in the afternoon, or on your commute, can you make it easy for you to access your materials, whether it's on your cell phone or a little notebook that you carry around with you? But you have to make it easy so you can be disciplined and that you're not fighting the materials. And that way, when you are on your normal day-to-day sort of journey, you're able to integrate your study languages, and it's that much easier to be consistent in studying. Next is to engage in conversations. There's no shortage of people out there who say that you have to or you should be speaking from day one. And there is something to be said about speaking, enunciating, pronouncing words right away to start developing the mouth muscles and the connection between what you are understanding the word to be and how the word sounds, and then your meaning with it as well. Now, this is one of these languages where you can have different tones or intonations, and that will give subtle nuance or subtle meanings to the words. Those have a different issue with pronunciation, so that's something that you do have to start practicing right away. If you don't have someone to speak with, if you can't find someone, or you don't want to spend money on anyone, maybe through iTalki or AmazingTalker is another one, you could read aloud. Maybe you're too shy. Maybe you don't have the confidence yet to start speaking. That's fine. Perfectly understandable. We've all been there before. One thing to build up your confidence is basically to make sure that you are doing your best to pronounce the word as close as possible to whatever the standard pronunciation is, whether or not that's using Google Translate to help you with pronunciation, using read aloud books or something like that, dictionaries as well. I know for Mandarin Chinese, Pleco is used very often, but making sure that you are practicing to say the words as if you're speaking to someone, even though you aren't. Another way to do this, read aloud. Get a book, start reading. It would be better if the book was at a level that you could actually understand, not a high-level book where you'd be struggling to understand a lot of vocabulary. And for this, you'd need something like a graded reader that is targeted at early learners in your target language. And that way, by reading out loud, not only are you gaining a familiarity with how the words sound, but you're also developing your vocabulary at the same time. The other way you can do this is make up conversations. Now with the advent of ChatGPT, you can go to ChatGPT and say, give me a conversation in X language, and it will spit out a simple dialogue for you. So this is another way that you can practice to build up your confidence and your ability to speak the words, to say the words, and be understood in your target language. Number 4, use apps. There is no point in trying to avoid technology in learning languages. Matter of fact, you should be embracing technology. Duolingo, Babbel, Rosetta Stone, Pimsleur is another big one, but there's lots of apps out there. LingoDeer, iTalki, HelloTalk, and all sorts of variations of them where they are very helpful in giving you some free lessons, and then once you hit a certain point you have to start paying. And whether or not you pay comes down to whether or not you find the app actually useful. Is it something that you can see yourself using? The difference between a textbook and an app is that once you buy it, it sits there. There's no more recurring cost. But with an app, since most of them are subscription based, it is something that, are you actually using this app on a day-to-day basis that you can justify spending the money on however long the subscription lasts? Do your research, read the reviews, see how many times it's been downloaded, see how many times it's been updated, and then choose an app and then stick with it. Try it out for a couple days, couple weeks, and then see whether or not it's something that you'd want to stick with over time. But use an app. There's lots out there, and they are very helpful, and I'll tell you, it's getting so much easier to learn languages just about anywhere at any time. There's basically, you don't have an excuse not to learn the target language that you want to learn. Number 5, study grammar and vocabulary. As I reminded myself on my recent trip to South Korea, I realized that vocabulary plays a huge role in being understood. So what's the best way to develop your vocabulary? Going back to the immersion idea of making sure that you have a lot of different input resources and materials and getting sticky notes and building up vocabulary that way. You can use flashcards. I've used AnkiDroid for years. Some apps will try to do all of it together, so they might have an actual, like Duolingo will have a flashcard app built into it as well. Same with LingoDeer, I think has it. You don't have to depend on an app. You can get physical flashcards and use those if you want to get away from the distraction of your cell phone. But the important part is to be building up vocabulary as much as possible. One other thing you might consider at this point is to go onto YouTube and find someone who's reading children's books in your target language. The children's books will actually help you not just with simplified grammar, but with a greater amount of vocabulary. In Mandarin Chinese, for example, all the colors are actually separated amongst the different HSK levels. However, you ask any kid, and these children will all know the different colors. I mean, of the rainbow. By learning your colors the same way a child would learn your fruits, your vegetables, different machines and things like that, that can help you group your vocabulary lessons into a bit more of a focused effort rather than following a textbook where it might take you on a meandering path to learn the different vocabulary over a period of time. So build up your vocabulary, then glue it together with the grammar. And the grammar, I've always thought, is sort of the logic that the culture uses to explain what they're thinking with the words that they have assigned to the sounds that they've given them, right? Does that make sense? Number 6, write regularly. Very easy to say, harder to do. Writing in your target language. I'm studying Mandarin Chinese at the moment, and I'll tell you, it is tough to handwrite in Mandarin Chinese. I can type, but writing with a pen is a little bit more daunting. Not only that, if you are studying a language with a very different alphabet to what you're used to growing up, for example, Cyrillic comes to mind. One thing I've found very useful is to copy and paste from a news article, from a website, onto something like Apple Notepad or TextEdit or something along those lines, and then you simply change your keyboard on your cell phone and follow along. You just copy down the letters that you see. That way you don't have to create anything new. You simply write what you are reading. Writing regularly doesn't mean that you have to be creating the next great tome of literature. It simply means that, are you practicing the letters? Are you practicing the characters? Are you practicing simple sentences? If not to help you learn the grammatical structures, then to at least understand how the words go together. Which word goes here and which word goes there in the appropriate format. Now, the other thing, though, there's a difference between fluency and accuracy when you are writing. For fluency, you want to be able to just write as you will without regard of grammar. If you are getting upset because of your grammar, don't forget, just about every single person in your target language will have someone read through their stuff if they're going to publish it. So once you write out all of your brilliances, someone else should read it anyway, so don't get caught up on the fact that, oh, my grammar's so bad. Yeah, because it's called the first draft. Whereas in our native languages or our naturalized languages, we are able to read through it again and go, oh, that's wrong, and then we give it to someone else, and they can also offer their feedback as well. Number 7, learn the culture. Learning about the culture could include idioms, food, history, and simply traditions. Learning culture might not be a direct language lesson. It could be more of an indirect language lesson in that it teaches you some formal sayings, some formulaic chunks of language, like happy birthday or many happy years together, or that's too bad for any number of reasons. One thing I've noticed with Mandarin Chinese is that as I learned how the characters are written, it actually helped me understand the culture a little bit more. You start on the left and you move up and then down, and the character is built with the idea that it's going to be completed. And that gave me a little bit of a background sort of understanding of why certain people and certain places operate the way that they do here in China. Learn some of the culture. It's not a direct way of learning a language. It's more indirect, but it can help you start to learn some of the whys things are happening in your target language. Number 8, take a structured course. It seems obvious to do it, but you don't have to do a structured course right away. Matter of fact, I think you should not do a structured course right away. I think, if anything, you should go online, YouTube, ChatGPT, and use those tools, the free tools available to you online, to start your language learning journey. This will help you sort of understand what you're actually interested in learning about the language and possibly the culture as well. It's not a very big commitment just yet, and you can sort of wade in very slowly to your target language. However, as you start possibly hitting a wall, it might be useful to, if not get a teacher, but also to follow a structured course. Getting a teacher and getting a structured course are two different things. Getting a teacher means that you have it could be one-on-one, which could still be a very tailored method or a custom method. They might have certain textbooks that they use or certain materials that are available to you. Taking a structured course could help you get out of thinking things on your own, like where do you go next, give you a bit of a guideline of how you should be developing and what to look at next. Now, one of the problems with structured courses is that they're very generic, especially if you're in a larger class, maybe anything larger than 6 or 7 people in a class, and you might not get the same weight in terms of language practice that you would one-on-one with a teacher or even on focused self-study. However, if it motivates you to keep on studying, then do it. Number 9, use mnemonics. Number 9, use mnemonics and visual aids. Mind maps, draw pictures, acted out TPRS, I think also fits into this category. Total physical response, but also simply walking down the street and picking out different language signs and maybe one or two characters or one or two words from here and there. There are different ways to preserve that moment, if you will. One thing about the visual aids, as I've found, is that it helps to have an experience behind the visual aid that will conjure up a feeling that may or may not be appropriately suitable for the language, but will nonetheless help you remember that word and why you learned that word, or even that grammar structure for that matter. Movies are also great for this in that they can give you both the auditory experience, so listening to something, but then also helping you learn more spoken language as well, and tearing on your heartstring. There's an old English saying, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon, meaning that if you sprint, you're going to tire yourself out faster, whereas if you're preparing for a marathon, or if you're running a marathon, you're in it for the long haul, and so you pace yourself a little bit more. You might not be seeing progress, you might not be finishing textbooks, you might not be understanding either people or written passages as fast as you think you should be. One problem that can happen is that you start thinking about it too much, is that you start going over your mind and you try to self-correct, and as a result, you get a little bit upset with yourself. You start criticizing yourself for not knowing better. And number 10, stay patient and motivated. When you face that problem, especially, it's not so much if you're having a problem with written text, but if you're speaking with someone and they're looking at you going, the fuck are you saying, bro? That can be demotivating. However, you have to push through that and find your own why for learning a language. Maybe it's not to talk to that person. Maybe it's more to be able to answer the phone or call someone in your target language. Hello delivery people or companies or businesses and stuff like that, just to check the opening hours. So just because you're not getting your conjugations correct today doesn't mean that you aren't building up the experience, whether it's the muscle, mouth pronunciation, or the sound, meaning, mind connection that you need to actually understand what's going on around you. Stay patient. Stay motivated, keep on going. It's a marathon, it's not a sprint. You can't learn a language in a weekend. I mean, I guess some languages you could try, but would it be deeply ingrained? Anyway, take your time, be patient, stay motivated, be in it for the long haul, not for the short time. Thank you, ChatGPT, and thank you, all of you, for watching and following along. I have made this into a little bit of a fancy-dancy ebook that you can download from the description below. Please subscribe if you want to follow along. It'd be fun to commiserate along the way. And then also, if you like this video and want to see more, give it a like. I'd appreciate it. Thanks again, folks. We'll do it again. Have a good one, and good luck with your studies. Bye-bye.